Welcome to a special edition of Speaking of Sasquatch. We are reporting from Ontario, Canada, where for the past 2 years, Mike Paterson and his colleague, the owner of this property who wishes to remain anonymous, have had a spirited interaction with a family of Sasquatch whose presence on this land apparently predates the owner's family's arrival here some 35 years ago. We first became acquainted with this so-called habituation situation by way of the YouTube channel Sasquatch Ontario. We subsequently conducted an audio interview with Mike for this webcast, as part of which our principal contributor, Kathleen Odom, provided some valuable channeled information directly from the Sasquatch that helped Mike and his colleague better to understand what this interaction means and how it came about. We encourage our audience to view episode 4 of Speaking of Sasquatch, as well as the numerous postings of Sasquatch Ontario for more background. During the course of our 3-day visit to the location, we witnessed firsthand nearly all of the phenomena that have been described in the past by Sasquatch Ontario. These include abundant sign, such as built structures, handprints, skillfully crafted stick figures and simple drawings, and most abundantly, marbles, which are thrown with great accuracy and land strategically. Mike and his colleague have amassed a collection of hundreds of such marbles, while this filmmaker, during the course of just 3 days, was gifted with about, at this point, maybe 20 of them, one of which, we note, showed up indoors at a precise moment that seemed to comment on a discussion of hyperdimensional physics that was taking place at the time. To this filmmaker, one of the most compelling aspects of visiting with Mike and his colleague was a first-hand encounter with the phenomenon of so-called imposed images that apparently result from Sasquatch consciousness utilizing their intention coupled with the intention of the receiving consciousness to produce photographs, and they're like nothing we've ever seen before. They appear to be beautifully crafted glimpses into other layers of the multidimensional reality in which we and the Sasquatch both live, even if we see and experience that reality very differently than the Sasquatch. This is the first time that Mike Paterson has appeared on camera to discuss his walk with the Sasquatch, and we're very privileged to be able to bring it to you.
I don't believe in luck. I think everything happens for a reason. They may have very well been here a very long time before us. We've been here for a few decades on the property. They've watched me grow up. They're just very good people, very nice, very caring. They have names. You know, they're just very decent people.
As a collective, they always seem to be emphasizing this idea of our knowing them through our hearts and rather than through our heads, and it seems like the way you've come to know them has been that way. You know, it's been a really profound emotional connection.
Yeah, through the heart, through patience, through very slow learning. You know, heck, I wouldn't mind sitting down breaking bread with them. That would be really neat. Would you hunt your neighbor? They're people. They should be left alone. They choose to interact with who they choose to interact with, and if people can't accept that, then, you know, that's the end of it. Don't be chasing them. Don't be trying to shoot them. They're people. They have families. They have children. They make weaves. They send wisdom. They teach you things. Does that deserve to be shot? I don't think so. I'm still quite unclear on what their message fully is. They may have a broader message for all of us, but I'm sure somewhere deeper inside there's maybe more of a personal message for each of us involved in this. I'm sure they speak to each and every one of us differently. Yeah, I'm not sure where they're taking us, but I'm on the ride till the end, I know that. Yeah. As far as feeling them in the heart, it's the heart, the mind, And hopefully these are just the baby steps of getting to wherever they may be leading us. Well, I'm quite sure there's many, many more people out there. A lot more people are starting to come forward now, right? So it's a good thing. It certainly is ridicule still, but I think it's definitely getting old. The more people that come forward, the more people that share the same experiences, the more people that speak of these people, brings it more and more to the forefront every day, and comes to a point where you can't point your finger and make jokes about it anymore, because it's not a joke. There's more out there than, people need to open up their minds and their hearts and figure it out for yourself. It's the best way to go about it.
They've given us quite a few drawings. I end up I just bought a new one, so I'll put a sketch pad on the table in the cottage with a marker. And actually, it's funny because the first time, I held this up and I showed them to, put the lid back on, and they've always done that. So we end up with these drawings. They just left on the kitchen table, right, along with the camera and stuff. And these are some of the drawings they've given us. They tend to always, for the most part, show a connection of lines to everything. They've started kind of drawing little depictions of themselves, which is pretty funny. This is a fairly recent drawing. This one's got a little smiley face on it with a flower. I have no idea what this is here. They've incorporated my glyph into the flower. Just a shape, an object I've used to identify myself.
Did you initially offer them that glyph of yourself as a representation, or is that something that they took upon themselves to use as a representation of you?
That was myself. I just it was just spontaneous kind of thing. I wanted something simple, not too complicated, something easy that I could leave around the forest in the shape of sticks, or something not difficult. That was done previous. I'd left it just on the page. That was kind of by itself.
So you started it with that small piece?
Well, they had done that.
Oh, okay.
I just left it in the sketch pad, and eventually they drew on the page again. Here again, they're doing their stick figures, and they've drawn my glyph here. It looks like a few times, and there's always these lines connecting. Looks like there's another little flower drawn here. This is just something that showed up in a drawing. I really don't know what to make of that.
So the object in the lower right seems to be some sort of face.
Yeah, definitely.
With some sort of connectivity with something above it.
Yes. Yeah, like up here, it looks completely different just in the shape of the head and all that, so don't know what to make of that. This one, I really have no idea. They did all these little dots here. This is a earlier drawing. This is showing up a couple times in drawings. Again, they're showing the lines, connectivity. Can see my glyph in there again. They've even given me that in one of the hand weaves, which we'll look at later.
Okay.
This one here, almost looks like there's water or something down here. Again, always lines connecting, that to that, that to that. I don't know, if this is what the dots represent. Stars, maybe. Is that a moon or a sun or an orb? It's difficult to say. This one here shows 4 stick figures, 2 big ones, 2 small ones. A lot of lines throughout there, connecting, always connecting. The theme of the drawings seems to be connection. This was really interesting. One of my favorites too. This is one of the first drawings that I received. I had drawn on the first page, and I'd shown them, and this was inside the cottage. At the end of it, I signed my name on the bottom, and I showed them, and can you sign your name? And this is what I ended up with, and I give this little squiggly line there, which, I assume he was giving me what I had asked for with the signature. But pretty good at drawing flowers, I gotta tell you. I can see a flower in there. Obviously a face with hair on it, which I don't think is me.
There's really so much there to contemplate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this one here, again, I see that same kind of shape head as previous. This is a fairly new one too. More stick figures and a lot of lines, and always, connecting lines to everything. Tends to happen often. And this, that was one that they gave me after my cat passed, and that's the first time and only time they've drawn a cat face, which was that was pretty mind-blowing to get that.
It must have been a real comfort to get it.
Yeah, plus when I came home from the vet and I was standing at the back door, I heard a marble on the fireplace mantle, like somebody had picked it up and dropped it on the pile. Very distinct sound, and it was, very clear. And, this is the new sketch pad, the drawing, the paper's a little smaller. But these are a couple from the last visit. And it seems that they possibly depicted two of them with one of us in the middle there. With, again, you can see the lines connecting. And this is a pretty interesting one. It looks like a tree trunk with a flower, a heart, and a couple of birds up top. So, they're definitely connected to nature, and there's the whole thing with the tree flower. These fake flowers, they use them as sign. I find them everywhere on my car, or you stand up from your chair, turn around, there's one already sitting on your chair within a couple seconds, kind of thing. And then there was the one time that he put a big tree limb on my car roof, and I got the audio of that where he actually states flower as he's doing it. So it was after that, the next visit, when I went back and I held up one of the flowers and I would pronounce the words, and I'd break the words down for him, show him how to pronounce them. And I walked up to a tree and I held the flower in one hand, and I put my other hand on the tree, and, so I could show him the difference, tree, flower. And ever since that, he just loved that. He would laugh. You get some chuckles out of him. That was his favorite saying. He would just go on. And I don't know how many times he said that, but we have it on audio quite often. This is my collection of hand-woven gifts that the Sasquatch have given me over the last 2 years. Every once in a while, a new one shows up. The first one, the one that I turned into a pendant, was actually left on the rim of my vehicle, just sitting, tucked in the little nook of my car rim on my vehicle. So they tend to put them in places that show who they're for. This is the first one they made, and You know, they're pretty intricate in their weavings, and there's a difference between the ones the owner gets and the ones I've received. You can tell some of the ones that he's gotten are a lot more intricate, and you know, they have marbles inside them, and you could tell it's from a much more experienced individual. But when I turned that into a pendant, you know, then they were giving me the same thing. They would do them in the size of a pendant. Again, you can see the intricate weaves, and we would get some of these, you know, in the middle of winter when it was extremely frigid, and this was fresh plant material. I'm not sure what it is, but this is like a hollow stem plant material. When they give me one, they'll give the owner one as well, and they'll put them in a place that, you know, we know, okay, this one's for Mike and this one's for the property owner. You know, they'll put something on his snowmobile or on my car, or I'll have a glyph made, you know, laying on the ground somewhere, and they'll put it beside that, showing that, okay, this one's for Mike. This one here, it was anatomically correct, and I'd had an accident and snapped a piece off of it, which, you know, I was a little upset about, and I'd hoped that I hadn't upset them, and I'd wondered if they were ever going to give me another one anatomically correct. And that obviously, you know, looks like a person, arms and head and legs. And they showed me one day that no, they weren't upset. They gave me another one, and this one's anatomically correct. So this one's not preserved. That's just natural.
And to preserve them, you use like a varnish?
Yeah, which it's worked well, you know, for the ones that we have done. This one is also not, I haven't touched this. This is natural as well. And this, you can see, you know, they've left a loop up top there. And this is basically in the shape of my glyph. You know, sometimes there's the piece going down the middle, you know, it's like partial peace sign kind of thing, and sometimes it's not. We had a blanket up by the gift tree, and I always lay a tarp under my tent. And I showed up this visit, and they'd taken the blanket and laid it out where my tent goes, underneath, like the tarp. And then this piece, at the same time, was sitting on the gift tree waiting for me as a warm welcome, that visit, which they tend to do once in a while, which is really nice. I'm always looking, every time, up and down that trail. I look for sign, and I know that nothing was there that day, and then come back from the gift tree minutes later, and you know, there's a hand-woven gift sitting on. I believe it was this one here, and it was just left sitting on the rock, no footprints, you know, only ours. I had an incident when I was 12 years old. At the time, I passed it off as a bear, right? And there was a situation where my family had gone up north, and I'd been doing some fishing down the road. My parents had dropped me off, and I was walking back. It was around dusk, and something was standing at the side of the road up ahead, and it turned and walked off into the bush, and I had this wave of fear hit me that, you know, I've never felt before. It was just, you know, I was terrified. I went running back to this campground, and I walked up to these strangers sitting around a campfire. And I remember I was white as a ghost. I couldn't keep a straight face, you know. My mouth was pouted, and I could barely get words out. I had so much fear. So in reflection, looking back on that, I now think that that was not a bear, but, you know, a good possibility that was a Sasquatch, and my first experience that I remember anyways. I started into wildlife photography, you know, spending a lot of my spare time going into the forests, bought some good camera gear, and in the several years I accumulated a good portfolio of images, a couple of which have been published online and stuff. But you know, I thoroughly enjoy being in nature and spending time around the silence of nature and all the sounds of the forest. When this started, getting a photograph of a Sasquatch would be the ultimate, you know, wildlife photograph. Things have developed and progressed since then, you know, into a much different motive and understanding. I've been involved in this for about 6 years now, up to this point. The last couple years I've been involved in this situation. I had come into contact with somebody at the start of this who had taken me into an area of activity, previous activity. And as luck would have it, right at the start, it was 4.5 hours into our first hike into this location, not this one here, into this other location, that we were approached by at least 2 Sasquatch, and it was my first incident of hearing them vocalize, and hearing one. It was like 3 giant guttural whoops, very low end, very pronounced, almost English. I remember thinking at the time, sounds like he could speak English, and just filled the forest, and just a massive sound. You could hear the lung capacity, and that just changed my life, just like that, right then and there. Once you hear a Sasquatch speak at close range, there's nothing else that it could be. They exist.
When you first came to the location, did you know what to expect?
At the time, I'd had enough experience that I knew what to look for and listen for. And I initially had been invited into the owner's home to interview, which led to an invite to the location which we're at right now.
So he needed to determine if you were a suitable person to come into
sure.
this.
At first I didn't know him, and I could have been some nut bar. He had no idea, right? This is it's a highly controversial subject, so it was I just kind of got to feel the situation out and see.
And did you pass the interview right away, or did it take a while for him to decide?
No, we hit it off pretty good, actually. I was invited into their home, and I think to interview them for maybe a couple hours or so. And at that time, I'd had enough information to determine that I should look further into it. So I was invited to the cottage, and it's now been 2 years, and we've been documenting together. And we've had just like an extreme amount of activity, as you've experienced yourself in just the last couple nights.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when you and your colleague first came together for this project, so to speak, was there a protocol that you kind of came up with ahead of time as far as how your research would go, or is it something that developed more organically over time?
I would say it was more organically. It was spontaneous. But when I first came into this, I was pretty much old school, like most people are. You don't really have any preconceived notions. You're not looking for invisible beings or anything like that. It's, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what they were. I kept an open mind. When I first came here, I was putting up trail cams and banging on trees and hooting and hollering like, most people are, that tend to go in circles and get nowhere. You might get a reaction here and there, but as far as getting any personal interaction with them, that will not do it. So after a while, the situation developed, and you learn, as it goes along. You see what's happening and see how they react and work towards beneficial, mutual thing that everybody's happy with, that works, where the interactions, continue, and you're not trying to trick them for photographs and that, which, at first, sure, we were, put up trail cams, but we, learned quickly that it was the wrong approach.
Was there any particular feedback that you got in that early stage that made you positive that the trail cam and tree knocking thing was the wrong approach to take here?
When I first started, there was an incident, basically the first night I was here. I knew they had activity going on the very first night. I'd set up my tent, and it was my intention to sleep in my tent. And I think it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I went walking down the road. I went to cut into the forest, and I saw this, I think it was one eye, possibly peeking out from behind a tree, but it was bright orange. And like there was a light turned on in its head. I had a very small LED flashlight that there's no way you could get this reflection, you know, if it's an owl or something pointing at it. The reflection would not come back as like I saw. This was a brightly lit orange eye staring back at me, and I had turned around and walked right back to the cottage, and you know, owner and his dad wondering what I'm doing back, and I ended up sleeping on the couch for the night. So there was a lot of fear to conquer at first, right? I didn't know what to expect. So when you see something like that staring back at you, it's intimidating. So.
Well, at that point, had you read widely in the field, and did you know of some of the anomalous things that have happened to other people?
I wasn't that schooled on it. I wasn't that up to date, and you know, too well aware of the strange aspect that comes with Sasquatch activity. Although I was aware of some of the native understanding, you know, which talked of interdimensional beings and shapeshifters and all that, but at that time I didn't know what to think. They could have been, you know, caveman still living for all I knew. I had no idea, right? It was a matter of keeping an open mind and learning quickly that all is not what it seems. We changed our tactics and just slowly let it unfold on its own, and they've since allowed us more and more insight into, you know, how their existence is, and you know, the strange aspects that come with it. You know, the one footprint in the snow kind of thing, or I remember at the beginning of that when we started seeing the footprints in the snow, I said to the owner at one point, I said, I think they're invisible. You know, and he thought I was nuts. I had this feeling that, you know, like, how are they leaving these prints? You know, I think it was right around the beginning. I saw 3 footprints in the snow, and that was it. You know, near this granite wall, and I jumped up on it, and it's like, okay, you know, I don't think they're climbing through the trees here. There's no other footprints, no trackways, nothing, and it's almost methodical in, you know, coming from their end, how they're allowing us to have this insight into their existence and what they're capable of. It always seems to be progressing forward with these little baby steps, you know, a little bit at a time. Okay, now we'll let you know this. Which actually, another incident that happened with you this weekend that we haven't seen yet, and that was that burst of images on your camera. It was the same image that you ended up with 15 images of the same thing, all with a different timestamp, all very close together, but again, that was something new they've shown us, which has been continuous through this whole process over the last 2 years.
Well, it is really fascinating. It seems that the tutelage that's taking place is very loving and very much geared towards the pace at which you want to proceed with your understanding of them, you know, and it's a very safe environment for you and your colleague to learn here. I'm wondering if you might, again, going back to the beginning of your interaction, if you might talk a little bit about what that progression was in terms of the sign that they left for you and the phenomena that they displayed.
At first, we would hang out in the gazebo, and I remember one of the very first things was I had this jam block, this drummer's percussion thing, this plastic, red plastic thing. They come in different sizes, and actually you get people that are looking for Sasquatch. They, you know, some of them use this tool for wood knocking and stuff. And I'd left it on the ground inside the gazebo, on the cement floor there, with a stick beside it. And I was standing about 15, 20 feet away from it with another person involved at the time. And we'd heard a clear, distinct knock come from inside the gazebo. This thing gives off a distinct sound, right? We looked at each other and, no way. Within seconds, you know, just a few short seconds, I was in there and I saw the one side of the gazebo unzipped. And I remember verbally speaking to the Sasquatch, telling them that you can have this is yours, I'll leave it as a gift. And I remember hearing it was almost like a little snicker, a little laugh, you know, come from pretty close by. I think I have that on audio too. And it was when I left that visit, I'd left it at the base of a tree in the forest here, and I come back 3 days later, and on my way to check if that was gone, I'd heard a single knock that was, again, a distinct sound that comes from that jam block. And sure enough, it was gone, you know, so that was reassuring to hear that.
We should probably point out that you have a background as a musician.
Yeah. The very first time they left sign on my car, it was this little plastic piece of a kid's toy, which I showed you when you were at my apartment there in the city. And they tend to put things in a place where you'll find them, where they will be visual when you'll see them. They're very good at that, at putting things where you'll find them. So I'd walked up, or come out of the cottage, walked towards my car, and there, sitting on the passenger back end of my car on top of the trunk, is this little white plastic, it's like a little ice cream cone top from a kid's toy. And I remember my jaw just hit the ground, because I knew, there was nobody around. I knew that was the Sasquatch, that, this was the first piece of sign that they had left me. I was just mind blown when I saw that. And from that, it's continued with, as many people know, they've used marbles as sign, and we've literally collected hundreds of them, as well as these little silk flowers. And there's one thing Sasquatch are big on is leaving sign of their presence, and they do this continually. Every visit, it's always they'll leave something to show that we're here, with whatever objects they use. Other people in different situations, it might be something else, but here it's marbles and flowers. And
well, what's interesting also about the situation here is that the regularity with which they show this sign to you diffuses any possible fear of it. I mean, somebody walking cold into the forest and having a rock thrown at them, even if it didn't hit them, might be a little unsettled by that. But because there's such a constancy to their presence here, and a kind of, for lack of a better way to describe it, a sort of warmth that comes through in everything they do, and particularly that comes through, I think, in some of the stick figures that they've left you, some of the sculpture. Could you talk a little bit about how that development came about?
I remember the first one I received. It was in the wintertime, and they'd placed it on it was in the crook of the rim of my vehicle. And I remember there was a couple of faint footprints there with dirt in them. And, it's just all clean white snow around at the time. So, no trackway in, no trackway out. That was the first time. That piece was kind of a little crude in comparison to the one the owner received. When they give to one, they always give to both of us. So he's gotten pieces that are a lot more intricate. You can tell it comes from a much older individual, much more experience.
Well, having had the chance to see some of these in person myself, I can attest to the degree of intricacy. I mean, they're very beautifully woven pieces, and I get the sense that almost one piece is used continuously throughout to weave the. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. It looks to me as if I've received pieces from not just one individual, because you can tell by looking at them that that's not the same person that made both of these kind of things, right? So there's I believe multiple individuals that are making these and gifting them to us.
Was the development of the drawings something that came after the stick figures?
We just kind of started. We would try little different experiments with them. I think one of the first things was I bought a whiteboard, which wasn't the smartest thing, because it just rubs out easy, right?
A dry erase board.
Yeah. Dry erase board. That I remember I had drawn a depiction of them and a stick figure of myself, and one of the first things they did was draw this. Just some crude drawing on there. But what I've noticed in their drawings is there's always lines connecting. It's like they're connecting everything, showing everything's always connected. In that first drawing, there was a line drawn from the genitals of what I depicted as myself to the Sasquatch, this big loopy kind of thing. It went to both areas. I don't know if they were showing, two males kind of thing. Maybe it was possibly Nefertia that had done that first thing. And, and then we were putting out little pieces of paper on the the front railing outside the front door with a crayon, and they would make little marks in there. And at first, I would copy, imitate, and be back and forth kind of thing. And that progressed to where we're at today, with, as you've seen, how much activity is going on inside the cottage. Although we haven't received a drawing this weekend, I've been leaving a sketch pad on the table. I think I have roughly about 20 drawings to date. I'm not sure how many the owner has at this point, but just leave a marker and a sketch pad on the table along with the camera and all that stuff. And as you've seen, the images are being imposed on the camera. The drawings are ending up in the sketch pad inside the cottage. There's always lines, going. They've drawn stick figures and depictions of them, and there's always these lines that are connecting. They're always showing this connection. I think they're really trying to convey that everything is connected.
Yeah, and it certainly would support the idea that one of their objectives is to reinforce our sense of connection to the earth and to objects of the earth and to other beings on the earth. That definitely comes through, I think.
Yeah, it seems they're, just possibly trying to wake us up, something we've forgotten, that we've, over time, we've detached from. I think they're trying to help us get back to what we truly are and our connection to everything. And, it seems that this world with the whole aspect of materialistic things and the monetary system takes us away from what we really are. So they're very good at helping, pull away from that and get us back to our true sense of self.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how the photographic development came about, the imposing of the imagery onto your camera.
That was another thing that's obviously it's developed over time, and at first we had no idea. We just it was actually the owner's idea to first put out a camera, and we started leaving them out here by the gift tree, and we would turn them on during the daytime kind of thing, and just leave them sitting, and we ended up getting images. Although we knew they were taking them or imposing them or whatever they're doing. At the time, the first images didn't really show the screen mesh stuff, so maybe they were possibly manipulating the actual camera. I don't know. They started off with close-up eye shots and this and that. Some people have misconstrued the idea that I've said, a lot of stuff those were Sasquatch, where no, I've only stated that Sasquatch did take the photographs. They're the ones utilizing the camera and putting the images on there. I have no idea what they are. And now we're at the stage of they're actually starting to reveal themselves in the photos, which is really exciting. It's not crystal clear images, but this is how they are starting to show themselves to us. Then we started moving the camera close down to the cottage and leaving it out the front door, and it was still happening. And then eventually we started doing it at night, and it still continued, but the light was not matching what was going on. It's dark outside, but we'd still be getting images, and we couldn't figure this out, what's going on here. And then we started turning it off and realized, okay, we don't have to turn the camera on. So I started bringing the camera inside after a while. Camera's now, as you see, now sits on the table inside the cottage. Camera's off. And at this point, as of last night, I now have 9 images on my point and shoot that I leave for them. I bought that specifically for them. When I come into the cottage this morning from the tent, there was 6 new images, which appeared on the camera about 15 minutes after I'd gone to bed. We've had images appear on the camera as we're sitting at the table. The camera's right there within arm's reach, and you see I'm constantly checking it, looking for images. And every once in a while it's like, oh, there's another one. So at this point, we're now receiving images of the forest. There's always a strange lighting that goes with it. You know, it could be 2 o'clock in the morning. Forest is lit up like daytime, or there's just a strange light, this bright light. You know, it's not sun, and no flash. So the flash isn't going off, but it's lit up like daytime. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 in the morning, whatever it is. Then there's always this mesh that's showing up. We're at a point where I'm starting to think that that's a veil between dimensions. And, you know, we've had so much stuff happen inside the cottage where actually you experienced last night, a marble dropped right beside you out of thin air. When the marble appeared, it was pertaining to what you had just mentioned in relation to that. I've had a marble, you know, come through midair or appear out of midair and hit my chair extremely hard inside the cottage.
Could you imagine yourself a few years ago seeing something materialize in midair and not being too fazed by it?
No, hell no. You know, at this point, it's happened so much. It doesn't faze me. You know, it's like, okay. In the 2 nights that you've been here, you've seen the extremity of it and how often the activity happens. We went for a walk, we come back, there's a 3-stick structure with 2 marbles sitting on top. You know, I walk up the stairs, there's a marble sitting there on the ledge. I didn't touch it. I come down, I go back up, and then it's gone. Or the apple we put on the ledge, we got a bite out of that, or it's just constant. All night long, throughout the whole weekend, doesn't matter what time of day, although the activity seems to pick up, you know, a little more when it's dark, but any time of day, all day long. There was one visit where I stood up inside the cottage and I showed Nefertia how to use a video camera. And the owner and I had gone outside, we came back in and got my first video clip taken by a Sasquatch. He panned the inside of the cottage, and again, it shows that screen mesh. There was all this kind of crackling sound going on with it, which I have no idea what that was. But there was 2 other clips. They showed the screen mesh again, and they were, one of them is actually a picture of another photograph that they've given me. So it's, you know, I've seen it before. I didn't realize that at first, but I have the image in video that they shot, and then I have a photograph of the same thing that they took.
And did the still photograph exist as a paper print, or was it only ever a digital image?
Oh, just a digital image on the camera.
Yeah.
So, but what seems to be happening, I remember when seeing these little short video clips, it was, I noticed how when they moved the camera, everything was moving with it. You know, the trees, whereas no, they should be stationary. So I was like, okay, what's going on there? And then with this weekend, I've seen images that are the same patch of the forest. And one of them has what looks to be a Sasquatch peeking out from behind a tree. In both images from 2 different nights, it's the same shot. So to me, it almost seems like they're able to access the past, take a photograph of it, and show it to us. You know, this is what it's starting to look like. That perhaps they can access a point in time that has already happened, photograph it, and impose it on our camera. It's just such it's a constant mind, you know what. You know, at this stage, it's all speculation. I don't know what to think about it, but you know, they continually give us these little glimpses to put these little pieces of the puzzle together.
It almost seems as if the evolution of the photography for them has been a teaching tool for them, but it's also been a learning process for them in focusing, again, speculative of course, but focusing their intention combined with your intention to produce these images. It's very interesting to think about, and they had suggested in the past to me in a transcript that Kathleen had provided that this is the way they wanted to make pictures, is by this focused intention on both parts, not necessarily by letting in light and capturing an image in the usual way. And yet, with your photography, there are elements of traditional photography in there with it. You know, like, well, maybe they're pushing the shutter at this point. Or...
Well, as you saw this morning, we popped the lid off after I found a little bit of chocolate on my camera. We popped the lid off the chocolate icing thing, which we'd given them some, you know, a couple of cupcakes along with the peanut butter jam sandwiches, and there was some finger marks inside there. So were they physically handling the camera? It seemed so. But at other times, you know, it doesn't move and images appear on there. I find the more I look for things, like I'm constantly checking the camera, constantly looking for marbles or drawings or this and that, they tend to give you what you're looking for. You know, handprints on my car, marks on my car. You've seen that too. We've ended up with a handprint on my vehicle and some more marks last night. I'll walk up to my vehicle and I'll put my hand on it, you know, and next thing I know, you know, they're marking the vehicle. It's that whole intent thing, and we've actually collected a lot of evidence that way, you know, with footprints and marks in the vehicle, drawings, pictures. It all has come from intent.
This is something you pointed out to me. I saw a very distinct print on your car that had an oil residue that was left apparently from the hand next to your handprint, and what we saw in effect was that, you know, yours was washed away much more quickly because the oil remained there.
Yeah, we ended up with some rainfall yesterday, and I brought you around, showed you the print on the car, how the oil on their skin, how it beaded on the vehicle. And I've actually seen marks on my car that had just lasted for ages, you know, through rainfalls and just continually beads when the rain comes, until I, you know, run it through the car wash kind of thing. You know, I've gone 2 years now, and I still haven't had a good visual. The owner's father, you know, they've all had sightings here. I've had, you know, nothing to date except a visual one time outside the window, sitting at the kitchen table with the owner. At one point, he was looking out into the forest through the window, and he questioned something, a large, tall, dark object beside the trees. And he's been coming here for decades, so for him to question something like that, question what he's looking at, it's, you know, something's up. And I had binoculars on me, I had a video camera, I had all my gear with me, and we didn't do anything. We didn't look through the binoculars, didn't take any photos, no video, and we actually even forgot about it. You know, that visit, it just brain fart, you know, just something happened there, and we completely forgot about it until the next visit. And then it came back to us, and it was like, what the hell happened there, kind of thing. I've had a few instances where I believe there's been some, the Sasquatch have, you know, done something to your mind to, you know, distort something or make you forget or send you away. You know, I've had a few experiences with that in the 6 years I've been doing this. So I do believe they have that ability to affect your perception to whatever degree it is.
It just reminds us that this place seems to be, energetically speaking, some sort of vortex or some sort of
definitely
place where interdimensionals come and go.
There's been other incidents with the photographs again, where I've asked to see other creatures, and in some of the pictures you can sit there and stare at them for a long time. You won't see, you know, and then all of a sudden one day something pops right out at you. There's one where it looks like a lioness. You can see her paw, her head, you know, her body, and I've actually posted it previously. There's another photograph where there's these almost kind of glowing eyes of something hanging onto the tree or something, and right in front of that, just slightly below it, I didn't notice till just, I think it was a couple weeks back, there's almost a small kind of bear cub-like figure hanging onto the tree. And I looked at that picture, I don't know how many times. I never saw it. It's right there in front of my face. A lot of the images, you know, a lot of the stuff is very faint, and you really got to study them, but after a while, you know, things pop out, and you clearly see the lines and and make out these other creatures and beings in these photographs.
And it's, if you think about it, I mean, what a wonderful way to be able to demonstrate some of these concepts to us, you know, involving physics and involving the nature of the universe and other beings that may inhabit it.
It's just, it's amazing with the whole camera aspect of this, how, you know, it's just kind of funny and ironic how many people are trying to capture photographs of Sasquatch, you know, putting up trail cams everywhere, trying to trick them for photos, and, you know, wearing their camo gear, trying to sneak up on them, and when in actuality they could be standing right beside you and you don't even know it. You know, I've lost count. We've gotten dozens and dozens of photographs from them. So, you know, instead of trying to photograph them, just give them the camera.
Well, and aesthetically speaking as well, the photos I find really provocative and resonant, and I think they'd make a good art show just on a level of fine art where you aren't necessarily bringing any particular expectations to them, but where you're allowing whatever messages or whatever teaching is embedded in them to come through you outside of your intellect. I think the photographs serve to bypass the reasoning mind. At least they had that effect for me. And the similar thing with some of the vocalizations. If you're not really, you know, sitting there in an analytical mode, but rather just allowing some of these vocalizations to pass into your consciousness, it's very moving. I can't help but think that both the images and the sounds are helping to expand our consciousness in a certain way. It would be really wonderful to see those images in a book and maybe a recording as well, listening to them at the same time or something, I don't know.
A lot of the vocals have definitely had a profound effect on a lot of people, you know. Some people it puts them in tears, you know, some people it makes them really angry. It's funny to watch the reaction of people, you know. They have a largely profound effect on myself as well, you know. Make me very emotional at times when I listen to some of this stuff. You know, it just puts me in the experience, and having been there at the time, you know, I get to relive it over and over. So, but it's also, you know, it's kind of neat to watch the effect it has on other people as well, and you can tell it really touches them, and it shows a lot of authenticity in those vocals, because, you know, the way that touches a person, it just, you know, you can't do that with something that's fake. You know, we have no expectations. We're just enjoying every moment of it that we can, and you know, whatever happens, happens kind of thing. As long as I'm able, as long as we're able to do this, you know, we will continue this. You know, I can't imagine my life without Sasquatch at this point, right? And you know, you see what we go through here, the physical aspect that we have to go through. Who's going to sleep out in this freezing cold weather? No, I'm in that tent every time, man, as long as I can continue. You know, I love hearing them walk around. You know, even if it's just a stick snap that I hear outside the tent wall, you know, it's all worth it, right? Every visit is worth it.
One of the most common questions that we get in the webcast has to do with, you know, their invisibility sometimes, and how they can literally be right in front of you or right beside you, which I've witnessed firsthand, and yet not be visibly present. You can't see them, but you know they're there. You hear them. Yeah. You hear their footsteps. You know their proximity. In my case, last night I was seeing all sorts of energy patterns on the back of my closed eyes. But I'm just wondering if you want to go into the realm of speculation and talk about how that phenomenon works.
We first started seeing the footprints in the snow. There's no trackways in, no trackways out, and you know, it's all clean snow everywhere. And, you know, I caught on pretty early, you know, thinking about this whole invisible factor, you know. Yeah, the owner, well, it took him a while to come to terms with that. But, you know, we're both fully on board at this point because we've just experienced so much of it. We've literally seen hundreds of foot tracks in the snow, trackways, single prints. At the end of last winter, the adults finally started showing their presence with their prints. Some 16-inch footprints started showing up, and, you know, literally within less than 5 minutes of arrival, I'm unloading my car, I come back out, and there's a 16-inch footprint sitting right by my car kind of thing. 2 hand-woven gifts, one on the snowmobile, one in my trunk, and no footprints, you know, where those are, kind of thing. And we've had literally physical interaction with 6 people now, where I believe it's Nefertia. He's put his, I believe it's his hand. He's literally placed it on my face 3 times. You know, I've had many taps in the head and pats in the back and pokes and light grabs, and I've asked him to touch several people, which he has. Both the owner and I have both witnessed almost a smoky-like substance that has appeared literally right here in front of my face, just before he's touched my face. So that's shown us that they can materialize in part or in whole. That's my speculation. With the big guy as well, he showed himself to the owner's wife one day, and he stands about 11 feet tall. And we, you know, we didn't follow, although we could see where he appeared. You know, we didn't go running into the forest, although it was the middle of winter, so it was all fresh blanket of white snow on the ground, and I'm pretty sure we would have seen the trackway in. So she went to step out the door after getting that photograph through the kitchen window, and it was only a few steps, as you could see. He was gone, you know, just gone like that. So it kind of seemed like, you know, he just appeared and disappeared, materialized, dematerialized. We've had disembodied voices literally right beside us. You know, we've heard Nefertia speak. You know, there's been an instance where I put the audio recorder on the railing outside the front door, and the owner's been standing there speaking. It's, you know, maybe 3 feet from his face, kind of thing. And he's asked if Nefertia could say something. 3 seconds later, Nefertia, you know, calls out my name, clearly says Mike, and his voice sounds literally closer to the audio recorder than the owner, right? There's been times where we've heard the wood on the deck creak under the weight of his feet. I've heard that while having one-on-one verbal interactions with him. You know, the light's on outside and you can't see him. I've also had visits at home in the city. They've shown their sign there, left things in my bag that I've checked. You know, I've checked my bag before I leave here numerous times, and I check it numerous times when I get home. Nothing, 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 you know, day after day. And then all of a sudden, you know, I got marbles and sign in my bag. There was an instance where we're down in front of the cottage at the end of last winter. The snow was gone, and, you know, we're looking for marbles we might have missed. And I see this rock. It's about this size, kind of thing. And I used to work in the granite industry, so I picked it up. It had some quartzite through it, so, and it had this red dot kind of thing on it, which, you know, I distinguished in my mind, right? So I take a look at it and I place it back on the road. And a couple minutes later, I walked into the cottage and I opened up my camera bag. There's that rock sitting on top of my camera. It's been just continuous throughout 2 years that, you know, when I state that Sasquatch choose to leave their footprints in snow, you know, I know that is fact. This isn't speculation. I've seen enough. And then there's also other people that I've spoken with that have similar situations going on. The owner and I spent many months, you know, at the beginning, didn't know their name. We used to call Nefertia Mr. Funny at first, before we knew his name. You know, his sense of humor. He's a very funny guy, right? He's always they show a lot of humor. They're very playful by nature. But I spent a lot of time, you know, be doing this, saying Mike, you know, Mike, showing him how to pronounce different words and stuff, and which has resulted in several words of English being spoken by him. But finally, after, you know, I forget how long it was, but a certain period of time, there was one visit. We listened back in the audio. He states the owner's name, my name, and then says Nefertia twice. So I was ecstatic. You know, that was the first time he finally said his name. And then there's been another visit where he was doing the tongue clucks, which actually I heard 2 of last night, which should be on the audio. And it's in one of the videos and then he started saying sister. So he was stating that his sister is the one who does the tongue clucks, and then he said the name Ashantia. So he's given us his sister's name, his name, and then we did the thing with Kathleen Odom, where she gave us the name Makante, and didn't know if that's a family name, a clan name, you know, but I remember after that, the next visit, I stated that name to Nefertia, and he repeated it back to me almost before I finished saying it. So, you know, his response time was just instant, and he yelled it back. Animals don't have names, you know, these are not animals. We're dealing with, I believe, an ancient people. You know, they're not like us, but what I see with the Sasquatch, especially the ones we're dealing with, they're highly evolved. You know, they don't have technology like we do, at least not that I've seen, although we've seen some crazy stuff that, you know, seems otherworldly. They don't need what we need to exist. There's an aspect to them that seems animal, you know, at times they're very childlike at times in their playfulness. But they, you know, we've recorded some things that definitely sound like they're speaking to each other in a language. They continually show us they understand what we're saying. I don't know if they understand the actual words, or it's the intent, or they can read us. I know they can read us, and they can read our intent, and you know, they can hear us, and it seems they can go wherever they want to go at any time, and they have a lot of abilities that are just beyond our comprehension. And I don't know why science isn't, you know, pursuing this and looking into this, because there's definitely enough of us saying the same thing. There's a growing number of individuals and families that all have similar situations going on, and it's you know, it's the same thing. You know, this cloaking that I hear a lot of people talk about. While I've never witnessed that, we have witnessed complete invisibility and activity inside the cottage, activity, you know, at my home, you know, a few hours away. And I don't think they're walking there because they're not using the door to go inside. The whole time, space factor doesn't seem to be an issue for them. It seems maybe they can be in multiple places at one time. I don't know. What I do know is they're much more than people think they are. You know, all these people that are running around the woods with guns trying to kill them, you know, it's wrong. It's just so wrong, because we are not dealing with an animal where you need a type specimen. These are people. And, you know, I just see that as plain murder, right? You know, if somebody is, or attempted murder, whatever, trying to kill them, it's you know, we don't need to do that to prove the existence of Sasquatch. There's enough of us that know, and enough of us that have real ongoing experiences and real evidence to show. They're beyond us, they're beyond our evolution from what I can see. They, you know, we got a lot of catching up to do. That's the way I look at it.
This is a photograph, one of a series of raw image files that was left on my camera one night at the location. A raw image file, as you can see using these tools, contains a great deal of data processed in a wide gamut, and it's analogous to a traditional photographic negative that contains silver and dye couplers, in as much as that you then have to convert it to another image format such as JPEG or TIFF, which is analogous to a photographic print. The image that I received follows the pattern of other color photographs that have been previously received by Mike and his colleague. This burst of raw image files was apparently captured by the camera on its normal SD memory card over the course of 1 minute or less, judging by the timestamps on the image files. They read either 10:50 p.m. or 10:51 p.m., which actually would have been 1:50 a.m. or 1:51 a.m., as the camera was not adjusted for the time zone that we were in. The files were approximately 11.8 megabytes in size, so fairly large. The size was the camera's maximum size, which is 3776 by 2520. The camera also wrote a JPEG file of each image at the same time as it was writing the RAW file, and those bear the same timestamps. Those files are smaller, they're about 3.7 megs. These were the camera's settings at the time that I left it on the table. No settings were altered. The camera was switched off with the lens cap in place over the lens when I left the device on the table, alongside the cameras that Mike and his colleagues normally leave on the table for this purpose. There was no sign of the camera having been physically handled at the time that I discovered the images, although Mike's camera that same night did demonstrate some signs of having been handled in the form of chocolate and peanut butter on it. Later that same evening, I switched the camera setting to a moving image, and during another short absence from the cabin, received just such a moving image. These photographs appear to follow the tradition of non-optical exposure that was demonstrated by Uri Geller in the 1970s as part of controlled experiments at the Stanford Research Institute. This photograph was published in the book The Geller Papers, courtesy of Lawrence Freed. As you can see, Geller made the exposure by concentrating on doing so, even though the camera was fully taped up and the film that it was loaded with originated from a reliable third party and hadn't been tampered with. The results were this image. This type of non-optical exposure was also demonstrated by the skull experiment, and they have examples of it, extensive examples of it on their website. Some of them are historical. Separately from the so-called imposed image files, I made exposures myself in the forest utilizing a mirrorless digital camera that I had had specially adapted by a man who does astrophotography modifications for NASA. To photograph into the near ultraviolet, it is necessary to use a quartz objective because glass, as we know, absorbs UV and it won't transmit it. I've done quite a few landscapes in this fashion. The UV lens is not highly corrected for chromatic and geometric aberrations, so it demonstrates abnormalities that are normally corrected in a modern photographic lens. However, the phenomenon that I observed in one of the photographs could not be readily explained by the aberrations that are to be expected from a quartz lens. Also, because this was a digital exposure, there was not a question of photochemical anomalies that might occur due to reciprocity failure in a very long exposure. So these are all more or less normal. You see the stars moving during the course of 4-minute or so exposure. This is what Mike's tent looked like. This is the somewhat anomalous photograph that I took using the specially modified camera. The exposure time, it looks as if, was approximately 116 seconds. The ISO rating of the sensor was 800, and the image size was 4032 by 3024. This produced a raw image. It looks like 13.5 megabytes large. It was exposed at approximately 10:26 p.m. on October 24th, 2014. What is somewhat anomalous about the photograph is the seeming overlay of this somewhat diaphanous curtain effect. Later in this webcast, Kathleen Odom and I discuss Nefatia's direct response to our questioning of what these photographs consist of and why they exhibit the characteristics that they exhibit. We can now examine the moving image that was left on my camera. This obviously is not a raw negative. It's written in an AVC HD format, so it contains considerably less information than the still image. However, what is remarkable about the photograph, or the moving image rather, is that it seems to show a still image that was previously provided to Mike and his colleague, and it exhibits the sort of mesh or moire pattern that has been seen in the other images that they've left for Mike. So viewing this at speed, it appears to be the camera attempting to focus itself. And judging by the sound on the audio, the camera is being physically handled. 6-second clip. And the landscape that it depicts clearly is the landscape where Mike sets up his experiments. The light as well, assuming this was taken at night, exhibits that unusual ethereal quality that we see in the other photographs and movies that they've provided. On the night that these recordings were left on my camera, the large recording that we just looked at was the third in a series. The other two apparently were unsuccessful attempts and are shorter. This one is 1 second in length. This one is also 1 second in length. The successful attempt, so to speak, was the longest one at 6 seconds. When I got home and began to transcode those 3 image files so that I could work with them, what I noticed is that only 2 of them were present on the original SD card in the camera, the 2 shorter, unsuccessful ones. The third one, file 26, was missing. I had made a backup of it in the field onto my laptop hard drive, so the image was still present there, and I immediately made an optical backup of it to ensure that it didn't disappear as well. Kathleen Odom, it's a pleasure to be with you here in Oregon. Again, we usually do this by remote recording, so it's actually nice to be sitting next to you. I wanted to talk a little bit about my recent trip to Sasquatch Ontario and some of the phenomena as well as the feelings that came up during the course of being there. For me, it was a wonderful experience. Although I had seen the postings of Mike Paterson and was a little bit acquainted with what was going on, actually experiencing it firsthand and experiencing the warmth and emotional intensity of Nefertia and his family was something else, being alongside them. You've worked with Mike and the family of the owner in the past, facilitating some telepathic communication from Nefertia and his family and the hairless human family. And so for that reason, you've been able to provide a certain unique insight and perspective on what it all means from the hairless human perspective, as well as from the Sasquatch perspective. I was wondering if you might just bring us up to speed on how you envision this relationship playing out. It seems like, from my perspective as an outside observer, it appears to be constant and it appears to be very committed, and a committed relationship, so to speak. And all the parties seem to be very committed to it, continuing to grow and expand and providing a vehicle for us as a species to understand the Sasquatch better. One of the phenomena that really moved me as a filmmaker were these images that were imposed on cameras without their being turned on even. And I was wondering, I know you've checked in with Nefertia for a little bit of expansion on that, and I was wondering if you might, bring us up to speed on what they represent and why there seems to be so much information that it's blurred, but in fact...
Yeah, I mean, I was just as curious as you and Mike and the cottage owner as far as, how and why they did that. And so I did ask Nefertia, let me share his response with you about the images on the camera. Nefertia said, different dimension to your people, all the same, all one to our people. We make images, as you call it, in the all one. It's like there's no dimension for them. The dimension is really a hairless human word and concept, pretty much. He went on to say, when we make image, we are in all places, as you call it. I got the feeling that the reason they're blurry, some of the photos that have been captured, was because so many of the dimensions, as we call it, are blending together. So we're getting, a number of images all in one image, if that makes sense.
Well, that would tend to be borne out by what I found looking at the raw negative and all of the information that was contained in there that couldn't possibly be expressed in a single photograph.
we tell you about now. They brought in the time concept here, which was interesting. It's always now, only now, Nefertia says. Then is now. Then and then and then is now. We make image then and then and then is all now. It's like when they have an image and then it comes back to appear again in a subsequent photo. It's because the then and the then and the then, it's all those nows are right now. I don't know if that...
The idea of the spacious present.
Yes, a spacious present, that's a good way. It felt for them, it felt to me that for them operating the camera as they've done, capturing the images themselves, it was sort of the same as, well, I've said that as far as them speaking English or speaking a vocalizing to our people is really, they're bringing themselves to our level to speak that language. And it's sort of the same way a camera is really a hairless human machine that we've created. And so they're willing to come into that venue because that's how we see a photo, is through a camera. And so they're doing that, but for them the camera work is really easy. I mean,
well, it's a testament to their intelligence in the same way that being able to vocalize in a human language is a testament to their intelligence. So being able to operate the mechanism in some way, however that works, I don't know how it works, if they're physically actuating it or not. They appear to be doing so due to the markings that are left on the cameras, but their knowledge of being able to work with the technology, so to speak,
right,
and realize these images, whether they be still images or moving images, I got both of them, is a wonderful testament to just how evolved they are.
Yeah, how they can come to our way of understanding and doing things.
Yeah.
And that was what I wanted to say about the vocalizations. I mean, to any hairless human language, they're coming to that because their preferred way of communication is telepathic. Yes, they chatter out in the in the woods to themselves. I'm not saying they don't. I mean, I've heard it myself, but their preferred way is telepathic, and they would really like us to get to that level. They want us to be in the all one, in the now, the all now. And when we're there, we won't need a camera. It's just another example of how they're like reaching out to us on our levels to get the together. If we can't quite make it to their level yet, they're coming to our level.
Right. They're more than meeting us halfway.
They're more than meeting us halfway. Yeah. It shows just what a strong desire they have to meet us.
Well, also, I mean, I think what appears to be a mysterious or even the riddle aspect of Sasquatch, or even the jokester aspect of some Sasquatch interactions, really is an invitation to grow and to learn. It's like the good teachers are always teaching by example and by paradox and by forcing one to expand. They're not serving up any answers on a platter at all. They're giving us these phenomenological artifacts that invite a great deal of introspection. I mean, same could be said for the marbles. I mean, they're extremely powerful, and what you've uncovered, and I think what all of us have felt on an emotional level, is that the marbles are imbued with consciousness of the Sasquatch. They imbue them in such a way that these become a kind of bridge between our consciousness and their consciousness. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the insights that you got from Nefertia on the nature of the marbles.
Yeah, my jaw dropped, basically. I mean, when he started talking about the marbles, and I didn't get until today to really experience the marble firsthand, but, well, I mean, I will say when I experienced it firsthand, I could feel it in my whole body. I felt, and I think you saw my right hand started like trembling. It was really interesting. Well, so what Nefertia said was about the marbles we give to you to tell you that we are with you. We like to be with you, and we like to give you marbles. The marbles are from our heart to your heart. The marbles are us. We are in the marbles. Your people can be in the marbles with our people. The marbles bring us together in the heart. The marbles to tell your people that we are here and we are there. Here and there the same. Your people here and there too, when the light shines inside and outside. When our people are in the light and your people are in the light, we are in the same place. All same, all one. The marbles show the light, all the same between our people and your people. We all same, we all one. In the all one, there is no dimension, as you call it. There is only all one, all light. There is no dimension, as you call it, when you be in the light. Your people make the dimension. Dimension only in your head. Bring light into heart, then you know no dimension. All dimension, all one. My understanding of that was that when our hearts are filled with light and then our consciousness is expanded to include all dimensions, there's no need to distinguish different dimensions. They are all one dimension in the all one. Nefertia went on to say, the marbles are for you to bring your light of the all one, to others of your people who want to feel the light. We give you our light in the marble, and you make your light in the marble, and then you can bring light to others of your people. Without your light, light cannot go to others of your people.
With respect to the marbles, my understanding from what Nefertia has given you is that the energy that they imbue the marbles with is potentiated by the energy that we bring to them. And in that way they become useful as objects that can facilitate, as they say, bringing light in. Could you talk a little bit more about it?
Yes, it's like it is necessary for us to bring our energy, our heart energy, to the marble, to join with the Sasquatch energy, to then become what I would say is probably a very powerful healing tool. I don't know if tool would be the word, but sort of like crystals.
Well, we certainly have heard of the way in which a gifted healer can utilize a crystal to channel energy.
It has to do with what's in your heart.
Yeah.
It doesn't even, you don't have to go to a marble workshop.
Well, I can tell you, flying back from Toronto, one of the Sikh security men who was inspecting my bags, when he saw them, he became ebullient and was hypnotized by seeing the marbles, and it was a kind of reverie for him, I must say, for whatever reason.
Again, they're reaching out, sharing their energy with us in that marble, because it's a physical thing we can hold, and all we have to do is bring our heartful light energy to the marble, and it can be used. I mean, I think it's amazing how they just go more than their share to help us, and they just do it with such light, radiant hearts. I mean, you being up there, it just it's a radiance that it's beyond words. You can't really put words to it.
And it's incredibly skillful teaching as well, because their coursework, so to speak, is always tailored to the individual and the individual's experiences in life, and so they're masterful as far as their teaching tools, And for those of us who are more scientifically inclined, and I'm not saying I am, but just the idea of their being able to materialize these marbles in itself is a very powerful matter for consideration. And I'm reminded even of like the Indian mystic Sai Baba, who used to have these phenomenological manifestations of vibhuti and objects, jewelry and so forth, that were all very well documented. And the energy behind those manifestations and what it meant was profound. And I suppose for any spiritual leader, it's a double-edged sword, because it inspires a certain awe in your followers, when in fact what you really want to be inspiring in them is not awe, but awe in themselves and in their own oneness with creation and their own ability to manifest, I think. Yeah.
Well, and I think their mode of teaching, I mean, I think it's sort of a given with our people that the best way to learn, to really get the learning, is when you can do it. When something opens your heart or you respond emotionally to something, you're going to remember that lesson a lot more than if you read it in a book or even hear somebody speak it.
Sure.
And so that's what they're doing with these marbles. It's not about marbles.
Right.
He made that really clear.
Yeah. But they're just as objects, though, they're beautiful and they're playful. So
yeah, and that says a lot about the Sasquatch too.
It really does. So Kathleen, while I was there, in addition to receiving these imposed images on my camera that I didn't take, I also took some long exposures myself in the forest in the dead of night, using a camera that was specially modified for me. And one of the images seemed to have a kind of, literally a curtain, a white diaphanous curtain over it. And I submitted a question to you for Nefertia about this and was wondering if he could shed any light on whether I was actually, photographing a phenomenon or whether it was an aberration of the quartz lens or something else.
Well, I did ask Nefertia about that, and he said, what you are saying is when you speak of time, as you call it, you see the curtain, as you call it, because you cannot see the all one. He says the curtain is what your people see. Our people do not see the curtain. There is more to see at dark time because there is more to be at dark time. What I felt from that, Chris, my insight at that time when I was in the sacred space with Nefertia, it's like there's more beings and more creatures appear in the dark because, well, frankly, I guess if they appeared in the daytime, our hairless human consciousness is not to the point where we can accept that. We just couldn't handle seeing everything that comes out at nighttime. So the other beings and the other creatures are comfortable to come out at nighttime. In other words, with the present level of consciousness of most of our hairless human people, it's best to remain in a state of like partial blindness, really, because total sight would be shocking to most of us. If we really saw everything that is around us, and I'll use our limited word, dimension, if we saw all that, we would just, it's too much. That's why I guess they're helping us to raise our consciousness so that then we can see more and experience more. We'll be able to handle it when we have been reconciled, or when we reconcile ourselves with the All One. And that's what bringing the light into the heart and then shining the light, seeing the All One, is all about. He went on to say, the light your people see in the photo is the light where we are and where your people are coming to. It is the same as the light in your heart. When there is light, there is no time, as you call it. The place, as you call it, is the light of the All One. It is the place of now. Your people cannot come to the place of light, the place of seeing and being light, until they see and hear and be with their heart. Then they will be in the light with the All One. We tell you of the heart many, many times. Your people are the All One, but they have forgotten. They are now remembering, and our people are helping them. Your people must be in the light before they can see the light. All for now. There's a lot there.
A lot of food for thought.
Whoa.
Well, I'm reminded of Aldous Huxley, if the doors of perception were cleansed, then all would appear as it is, infinite.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they're saying.
While I was visiting Sasquatch Ontario and just sitting out in the forest in the dead of night on a very dark night with my eyes closed, what I found is that the light patterns that I saw inside my closed eyes that were not in any way retinal after images, because this is long after it was totally dark. These colors and geometric patterns I found intensified when the Sasquatch were seemingly in close proximity, and they were in very close proximity. I was wondering if you could recount what Nefertia had to say about that phenomenon and why that occurs.
Well, I asked him about that, and he said, what you speak of here, the inner light, as you call it, is how our people help your people. When we are closer to you, you see the inner light be stronger and brighter. It's like the inner light you were seeing is, in your eye. You were seeing it with your eyes, but it's the same light that they're talking about in our hearts and that we shine. And our people help your people to make the light. It is same with how you feel in your heart when our people are closer to you. I've heard others, and I can say myself, when you are in their presence, there is a warm radiance, for lack of a better term. It's this warm, it's palpable, really. You can just feel it. It's like you're just being, swathed in this beam of just, it's wonderful.
Yes, and I experienced that while I was there.
Yeah. Our people help your people to feel the light, feel the warm heart, and then you can be the light, and then you can shine the light to all others in the all one. When you shine the light, it is a big help to others of your people who have forgotten to remember. We help you to make the inner light in your heart. Then you make the heart light to shine out to others of your people. It helps you and it helps them. Our people like to help. Our people are very, very happy when you shine the light, unquote. It just felt like the light is that you're talking about got stronger when you had your eyes closed and they were so close. It's the same light that we have seen in those photos in the forest.
And I was reminded of the idea that the pineal gland does contain photoreceptors inside, and perhaps not sensitive to the same wavelength as the photoreceptors on our retina, but nevertheless, that the idea of a third eye is valid, I think, and possibly is connected with this idea. There's an interconnection between these concepts. Their first and foremost concept, obviously, is the all-one, and the idea that we're connected with all other consciousness, and that if we fully felt that and appreciated it, we would not, treat our planet the way we've collectively treated it. The idea of that interconnection then dovetails into the idea of a spacious present, and the idea of there really not being any past or future, but it all being a spacious present out of which exist many probabilities. And the idea that really in the spacious present, when you are acknowledging and with the all one, there really aren't these divisions of perception into ordinary or non-ordinary reality. It all is an expansive perception of reality, which they seem to exist in as an ordinary state, in which we can only glimpse in little pieces. Physical existence, the type of existence that we humans have, is of its nature constrained and is of its nature focused on a certain type of
separateness, really.
And the idea of separateness, of course. Yeah.
Their way of being and seeing and teaching is, all inclusive. Everything is all part of the all one. And, I think foundational to our coming to that level is, negating species superiority, which we, especially in our culture, really have a tendency to come from that perspective. And we just can't come from that perspective and go to where the Sasquatch are trying to take us.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
We have this bell here. We used to use it all the time when we would show up. ring, just announce our presence kind of thing. And one night we got a recording of what sounds exactly like this bell, but it's so fast, we can't get it to sound like they did. It sounds, like one of those bicycle bells, really rapid ringing sound. This thing, no matter how hard we've tried, it just can't get it to sound the same. Putting out whack of food for them. Last night, actually, I had this hung up like this, right? And they took it off, and this was about 10-15 feet behind my tent. So tonight we put that on top. And actually, this here. Yeah. Now we're gonna fit this. Some greens for them, and some pineapple, and there's some mushrooms there too, left over from dinner. I guess we'll just put all this stuff down here.
Wow, this is a feast.
Because, there's no other critters really to come around here. I think they're all afraid to.
Is the apple from yesterday?
No, this was actually earlier because, I was up here, so that could have been squirrel too, right? I don't know. And some more bananas. So they got some cupcakes, a little bit of recessed peanut butter cups, some apples, bananas, peanut butter jam sandwiches, some pineapples, and a bag of greens. They're just getting a feast tonight. And you got your audio. October 26, 10:10 p.m. gift tree. Is that going?
Check. Yep.
Okay. Tuck it into this little cavity here. This is where all the snarling comes from.
So you have natural protection from the elements there.
And that's it. Okay, my friends, we're just recording audio. I'm just going to take a quick look in my tent. Doesn't seem to be any disturbance in there. And you can see my tent's only about, 15 feet away? 15, 20 feet at the most from the gift tree. You can see the little structure still standing beside my tent that they've marked my tent area off with.
This is where we did the interview earlier today.
Yeah, that structure's been there for months now. I just asked Chris if he put that banana on his bag, which I didn't think he would. So.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to take it back, you guys. Is it okay to leave it here for you?
They're just showing they're here. Right here, right now, all around us.
Okay. To open, let me make sure they can open this thing here.
I already opened it.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, it's done. It was the owner's nephew who had brought these little cars up for the Sasquatch to play with, and we've continually put them on this log, and for the most part it's the red one is always off, always the red one every time. Last visit, I fixed it, put the red one back up, as well as the visit before that. And every time we come here, the red one's sitting on the ground. We've left them quite a few gifts, musical instruments and stuff, and everything disappears eventually.
And does it come back if it disappears?
It has. The maracas. The maracas have disappeared, come back several times. This is my tent spot that I've used the same spot for quite some time now. And they've marked it off on both sides, actually, there's now 2 structures. The one, the newest one, the big one there, that's brand new. We think that just got put up since last night. It's funny too, because they put it in such a way that it's not in the way of the tent at all. They know I don't put my tent past a certain rock there, and it's right in line with the edge of that rock. So either structure on both sides of the tent, nothing is in the way. It's just everything's good. It all fits. So it was quite the unexpected gift to come up and see a new structure built beside the tent.
I think they have always been in this area. Now, whether they've actually been right as close as they are now, I think they have probably moved into this area from another 35 years ago. We bought it as an investment and just come up here every weekend in the winter and summertime, snowmobiling in the winter, boating in the summer, fishing. I worked in General Motors for 41 years before I retired in 2002, and when I come up here by myself, I'll usually hear 3 knocks on a tree. They're letting me know that they're there, and we receive marbles and as gifts from them. There's been all kinds of gifts given to them, and all kinds of footprints in the snow in the wintertime, and I don't really get into them like my son does, but I know they're here. You'll hear them tap on the side of the cottage or throw marbles or something, and they'll hit the roof and roll down the roof, or small stones, and I think they're just trying to attract your attention. They're playful, and they only let you see them when they want you to see them. No, I haven't seen a lot that my son and Mike have seen. I'm just not capable of going up in the forest with them. I don't know how they get into the cottage without opening the door. I can always tell when they're around. I spent a lot of time up here by myself, being retired. I went to bed and I was reading. This was around 11 o'clock at night. And I heard one of them up in the bush make a whoop, whoop, whoop sound. And it was loud, really loud. And it just sent a feeling through my body that just can't explain it. I'm a car fanatic, and whenever I used to go to stock car races and hear the sound of them engines all the time, you would get this feeling over your whole body, and just, well, that's some of the feelings that I had that night, eh? Like, I understand them. I'm just not really into it like Mike and my son are. But I know they're there, and I just let them be. I have dreams about them. Now, whether they put that in your mind or not, I know that they can play games with your mind. But I have a stone wall in front of my property along the road, and I was sitting on it one day. I'd be out working outside, I'd sit there and have a cigarette. And that night I dreamt that I was sitting there, and there was a Sasquatch sitting beside me, talking to me, but its mouth wasn't moving. And he kept on pointing to the cigarette in my hand and pointing to my chest, as if, you shouldn't be doing that. A lot of it's just so hard to explain and put in the right words. I'm not as scared of them. Just from what I've heard, that they're very docile. There must be a family of them living up there. Small ones, teenagers, just like ordinary people, but they keep to themselves. I guess they want to have company too. They get sick and tired of playing with each other, so they start playing with us, so they have a calming effect on people. Like, I would be more worried about somebody trespassing on my property than them. I think they probably do have something to share with you, but they have to gain your trust. If one walked up to me, I wouldn't turn around and run away. I would probably want to find out why they're here, where they came from, what is their purpose of being here. And they might hold a lot of answers.
Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Speaking of Sasquatch. We will continue with great interest to follow the developments here at Sasquatch Ontario. Clearly, Mike and his colleague, on a very personal level, are at the forefront of developments that have far-reaching implications. As the Sasquatch have stated numerous times, our people remembering their people is, quote, bigger than we can imagine, unquote. It is something they have awaited for longer than we can imagine. Thank you, our audience, for being part of that remembering. See you next time.
Mike! Robert! You! Mike. Hey. Go! What?